ready.
And then I'm going to be sharing it a bunch right
So
off the bat.
Elizabeth will be looking down.
Okay.
I'll try not to a whole lot.
And here we are live on Facebook.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Martino Sexton. Welcome to our Heartland Facebook Live here with my partner, Elizabeth Louder, and with our special guest today, Dr. Diane Sanford. And so welcome to this beautiful first day of October. At least here in St. Louis, it's gorgeous, sunny, a little bit cool and breezy. Perfect beginning to what I feel like is fall, even though, well, it is fall. So Dr. Sanford, we're so excited to have you with us today. Elizabeth and I are just honored and so grateful that Dr. Sanford has been with us from the start of our adventure here with Heartland PMAD. She's an inspiration for us and someone that we go to often as we're looking at how do we continue to be of service and make an impact in the area. So Dr. Sanford, we're grateful to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you. And I'm really grateful to be here with the two of you because you are an inspiration to me. I am so excited to see this next evolution of awareness and education about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And I think the work you two are doing is so important to the community, to providers, to moms, and it's great to have been with you from the start and to get to be with you still. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
So Dr. Sanford, for the folks out there that might be hearing from you for the first time, tell us just a little bit about, your history in this area of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and how I know your mindfulness journey has been a part of that as well. So share just a little bit about, how you've come into this space.
So what's really interesting, again, is that I didn't come into this space intentionally. Because back when I got started in 87, I think my first PSI conference was 88, and then soon after that, I was on the board. No one was really talking about maternal mental health. And people were afraid to come forward, moms, and as we learned, many of the providers had had experiences with it too, were afraid to speak up. And so I really started when the movement, if you want to call it that, was just beginning. Mm-hmm. And in St. Louis, we tried several times to pick up some momentum. In the early 90s, Barnes had an active postpartum advisory board. Mercy had an active postpartum advisory board, but they kind of sputtered out by 2000 and so. Anyway, there were a group of us across the country, psychiatrists, psychologists, other behavioral health specialists, that began promoting maternal mental health services. And it was very grassroots at that point, which it still is to some degree. And when I entered the field, the main thing that I talked about, was self-care. And it still is a major thing that I talk about because a lot of women are still hesitant and feel that self-care is selfish, not self-preserving, which is what I say and what we say in our books. And so a lot of the work was around self-care, was around acute focus. And by that, I mean, really dealing with the situation of being a new mom and what it was like and how it affected you. And from there, we started to look at models of therapy and how those would fit or not fit with different therapists, with their clients. And so they were looking at interpersonal psychotherapy, which is still very well regarded in terms of postpartum. And mindfulness really didn't come about for a while, because again, that was another new thing. So now we had perinatal mood and anxiety disorders getting better recognized, but we didn't really know how to fully treat it. And in my personal practice, what I started seeing was I could get women to practice self-care. I could help them deal with all the situational and hormonal and relationship changes they were going through. However, as we know, and especially in the practice that I have, how women internalize or their self-talk is very often a main source of their problems, because they are self-critical, they're catastrophizing about things. Basically, the thinking style that you either have beforehand or you end up with because of anxiety and depression. So back then in the day when we were starting, it was mostly cognitive therapy that we were offering. And what I found over time was that because of the nature of the women I was working with and dads and families, that they could talk around cognitive therapy. That when we would talk about, their cognitive distortions or refuting irrational beliefs, that they could keep going and going and going. So I felt like this was a less than perfect solution. And I wanted something in addition to self-care that could really offer them a skill set that they could develop, that they could, become familiar with, that it would become more automatic for them. And personally in my life and professionally, I started kind of seeking for what that might be. And that's kind of my way. I stumble into something and then I realize that maybe this is a direction I want to head in. So I started studying mindfulness. And I love mindfulness, and that's what my newer books are about. I love mindfulness because mindfulness helps us get out of our heads and back into our lives. And that's what I really think a lot of moms, a lot of those of us who are therapists, where our recurring issues come from. So I studied with a lot of mindfulness teachers, including Deepak Chopra, including the guys who developed mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. I kind of browsed around to see what was available. And I thought, I like a lot of these different techniques, but me being me, and because I'm a writer and like to put information together, develop my own curriculum, which is Stress Less, Live Better. It's 5 skills. They go from less complicated to more involved, if you want to say it that way. And again, what I've discovered with my clients is as they start practicing them, not only do their symptoms of anxiety and depression decrease, but they develop, like I have, a new way of looking at the world, of relating to themselves and relating to their lives. So I say your skill set becomes a mindset. And so that's where I've gotten to in practice, in my personal development. So if anyone comes to see me now, I tell them that, yeah, we're going to talk about things and how they are, and we're going to figure out, how they can live with more ease and go about things in a less stressful way. But we're also going to be skills building, because I really believe that now more than ever, we need to help people acquire the skills to lead the best lives that they can. And that's where I've come to. And perinatal mood and anxiety disorders are a big part of my life, but also now mindfulness is a big part of my life, and just helping people at every age and stage enjoy their life the best they can and create the life that they really want to.
Diane, for those that don't know about mindfulness, or
Sure.
for people who have preconceived notions about what mindfulness is, what is like an easy way that you explain, what we're talking about when we say mindfulness?
So an easy way I explain it is that we're not talking about, meditating for 45 minutes or an hour each day. We're not talking about some woo-hoo kind of, a lot of people are skeptical and think this is mumbo jumbo. We're talking about just tuning into your life as it's occurring. So an example, so the first skill set I start with is called Simply Breathe. So an example is pausing, taking a breath, then taking another breath, and just following your breath back and forth. So instead of living in the future, where we spend 80% of our time, or regretting the past, where we spend 20% of our time, we learn to deal with experience as it's occurring. So we learn skills like the body scan relaxation, where you tune into your body, or savor the moment, where you're taking a shower, and instead of going through your to-do list in your head, or what's next, or how you were, at the social event and you think you said or did the wrong thing, we learn to appreciate or tune into the sensory experience. So if you're in the shower, to how it feels, how the water sounds, what scents surround you. So we go from being in our heads to being in our lives. And there are a number of ways to do it. And that's why in the book, I've outlined the 5 skill sets. And in the book for new moms now, or for moms, there are lots of mini exercises they can do. There are longer exercises if they want to. But what I'm really helping people to understand is you don't have to add anything extra to your day. We can do it in very simple, small steps. And in turn, that helps us deal with the more complicated ones.
Mm-hmm.
Is that clearer? I don't know.
No, I think it's good to explain, because I think it is a common misconception to think it's like you've got to be a yogi and you're meditating all day long, and it's way more extra than it really needs to be, or that it is. And it's simply just paying attention to the here and now.
It is.
Paying attention to what's happening right now.
Yes, pay attention to what's occurring in your life, because the truth is, the only moment we really have is the present moment. And that's the one in which we have an opportunity to respond with choice rather than react on autopilot, or from our conditioning, or from the tapes that are running through our heads, and realize that, oh my God, I can go for a walk and I can notice the trees, and I can feel the lovely October day, and I can feel the breeze on my skin, instead of, as women especially, I think overthinking, over planning, dwelling on what we've said or done that may have offended someone, worrying about approval. We spend so much time in our heads that, tuning into the here and now affords us a much more peaceful life than we can imagine. And again, it sounds almost like magic, and I don't intend it to sound that way. That's why I say it's simple, not easy. It requires persistence and practice. And one of the things I would add is that if you think you can do this and then stop doing it, or if you think you don't have to do it routinely, like self-care, you won't benefit from it in the same way. And that's why I talk about this as one of the pillars of health: stress reduction, mindfulness, whatever way you choose to approach it. And the other ones are sleep, nutrition, and exercise or movement. And I see all of those as being critical to our health and emotional well-being.
Mhm. Yeah. So because we have to keep
It
doing
is.
it for it to work, it doesn't mean it's not working.
Right,
Like
right. So
brushing your teeth, you got to do it multiple times a day
right.
for it to work.
So I am so glad you mentioned that, Elizabeth, because one of the things I say to people, right, is we don't wait to have cavities and then start brushing our teeth. We brush our teeth every day to prevent cavities. We practice self-care and stress reduction. And for me, mindfulness is the best way to obtain stress reduction every day. And if not every day, several times a week, but it has to be part of your health routine. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
It's not going to work. So besides kind of getting people through this idea that it's kind of, you know, woohoo and just for yogis and people who are into meditation and walk around barefooted, you know, it's also telling people honestly, if you undertake this, undertake it with effort and perseverance, because that's the only way you're really going to get to creating a life of more ease and greater joy.
And it doesn't require, any special outfits or any
No.
special, right? I know that, for me, when I started to learn about mindfulness, knowing that I could take a different approach to, let's keep with the toothbrushing metaphor, but I could take a different approach to brushing my teeth. Instead of doing it to get it out of the way, being in that moment, noticing how it feels, how the toothpaste tastes, how it smells, like being present to it, noticing my breathing as I brush my teeth. Like that is a part of stress reduction, being in the moment with what you're actually doing. So whether it's brushing your teeth or like when I'm doing dishes, instead of being annoyed that I'm doing the dishes, I can do the dishes, and I buy soap that I find, smells good to me while I'm doing the dishes. I like lavender or citrus scented things, so that when I'm doing the dishes, it's a mindfulness practice, a stress reducing, I'm accomplishing something. And while I'm doing it, I'm aware of how the water feels, trying to take those times when I am accomplishing things that need to get done and being in them in a way that is, like you said, is ease increasing for me. So stress reducing, or I feel more ease, or I feel a sense of, it's a lighter way to approach the tasks. Like even with vacuuming, like, there's a sense of when I'm vacuuming, like I love to hear the sound of all the stuff being sucked up. Now, I used to spend my time vacuuming thinking, oh my God, everything's so dirty. Now it's like, it's just so exciting. So like, there's a way that I can look at it as I go around and do things that maybe aren't my favorite thing, but that cause less stress in me and put me more at ease. And so it's that daily stuff. I don't have to go to a temple. I don't have to wear specific pants or shoes. It's how I am being.
Yes, so I say that these skill sets become a mindset or an attitude. And again, if we are in our head, so vacuuming is a great example, Kim, I love that. So if we're in our heads and we're getting annoyed and we're paying attention to what we have to do next and things like that, we physically will trigger our stress reaction. So our bodies will be filled with adrenaline and cortisol and other stress hormones, and we will start to feel greater distress and dis-ease than we did before we started. If we are approaching the dishes, and my favorite scent is gardenia right now. I love that. So if we're doing the dishes and we're smelling the wonderful scents that we have, and we're playing in the bubbles like we did when we were kids, and we're just approaching it with an open-mindedness and not evaluating or judging or, deciding that, oh, this is a bad experience, or this is really annoying, or I'm getting so frustrated, or I wish I was doing something else, we begin to diminish the release of those stress hormones. And in doing so, again, our body, like releasing endorphins during exercise, begins releasing things that help us feel more calm, stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system instead of the sympathetic one. And we can breathe again. I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and one of the things she does, and a number of the moms do, is when they're in carpool line, they just close their eyes and they take 10 kind of deeper cleansing breaths, calming, cleansing. And then instead of like sitting there and torturing themselves with thoughts of, oh my gosh, how are the children going to be? What am I going to do with them when I get them home? There's going to be so much homework, and things that flood us with unpleasant and distressing sensations. They've actually taken maybe 3 to 5 minutes while they're in carpool line anyway, and then they feel a greater sense of calm. Now, that may or may not last long, and that's why we do it routinely. So, but it affords them an opportunity to actually greet their children with more energy and less stress than they might have otherwise. So, and again, what I'm recommending to moms routinely is that they practice a lot of savoring the moment, because they don't have to add anything to their day. And it teaches them how to have a different attitude about approaching themselves and their lives, which over time, I have seen people transformed with this. I mean, it's amazing to me how powerful this can be when you use it on a regular basis. I have clients who were so anxious and phobic of one or another situation that over time and over learning and studying these techniques, many of their fears have subsided. And even when they do trigger, they are able to really, like I thought cognitive therapy would be, to really pause and say to themselves, okay, and this is another metaphor I've been using a lot lately, which I think is really helpful. This is my emotional brain. So we have a rational brain and we have an emotional brain. And so the stress reaction is mainly concentrated in our emotional brain, or our less advanced brain or lower brain, or they've got all sorts of names that they call it. But they're able to step back and say, this is my emotional brain getting triggered right now. And yes, it's causing unpleasant sensations, distressing thoughts, whatever. However, this is not the whole story. This is not the big picture. I do have a rational part of me, which under different circumstances would be more capable to intervene. And they've had enough experiences with it that they know this can happen. I think, though, with moms, and especially lately with health providers ourselves, that we are so physically fatigued, emotionally depleted, mentally drained, that we are more susceptible, right? To stress, anxiety, depression, unpleasant emotion, thoughts, sensations. And so, we probably have more challenge being able to access or use these tools. And that's why I say to people, learn these tools when you're not in crisis, so that you have a very big toolkit that you can draw upon. And I will tell you, during COVID, one of my lifelines has been yoga. And no, I don't dress up for it in special yoga pants or yoga toe shoes, or wear, a third eye on my t-shirt. I'm really pretty normal, and so are the other people in my class. You'd be surprised. But having that touch point a couple times a week has really helped me to settle myself. So I would encourage everyone out there, first off, and I don't know what resources you two have or you have, Elizabeth, but if you go to my website, which is just drdianesanford.com, and you click on the resource tab, the second category on the drop-down menu says YouTube, and you can follow along with me on these guided exercises, and they're free. And I don't care if you approach it skeptically. Try and prove me wrong. I'm up for the challenge, but go to it and see what it is like and how you experience it. And there are, again, 5 different skills that you can choose from. Choose the one you like. Choose the one that works for you. Do parts of it each day. It doesn't matter. Do something, though, because I think in this time of uncertainty and stress, if we don't have these touch points and these experiences that keep us centered and grounded, we are going to be a lot more susceptible to stress, anxiety, depression, and other health conditions.
Mhm.
So what are you two doing for self-care?
Well, the thing that stands out for me is I'm doing a whole bunch for self-care. So I spend like hours a day putting myself together. Is what I call it. But I'm mindful in the morning that I have several things that I'm doing. It always involves some form of being outside. And it's little bits throughout the day. So, my timer goes off to remind me to breathe, to be mindful for a moment. I need those reminders to stand up, to move a little bit, to step outside. So I put in my calendar reminders that pop up to remind me, go outside, stand up, breathe. Because I am not someone who's going to just remember to do that unless I'm reminded. And I love that, going to your YouTube and being able to be led through the exercises, because that's what I do in the morning. I turn my TV on YouTube, and then I need to be guided through a 5-minute something or a 10-minute something. And knowing that there's those resources. And for moms or busy professionals, I know it sounds hard. It's like, oh, now I'm going to set a whole mindfulness practice and it needs to take 6 hours, but it can be 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be something that, you have to rearrange your entire day, but you can take moments to do And there's so much research out there that tells us that when we do take those moments to breathe and recharge, that it, it lowers blood pressure, it encourages proper immune function. And we all need our immune systems,
right,
right, to be operating at optimal level during this global pandemic.
Yep. So how about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Epsom salt baths.
Yes.
And we just moved into a new house about 1.5 years ago. And really the main thing I was looking for in my house was that I wanted a big soaking tub, because that's such a big part of my self-care. And I had like a piddly kind of bathtub for 13 years prior. So it's my favorite part of the house. And I tease that, with my family that like, I'm going to be in my office, and it's not here, it's up in the bathtub. And so, soaking and with salts is really good for me. I also have been trying to just like deglorify being busy all the time.
Yes.
And especially since the quarantine, like, everyone's here. There's not a lot of alone time.
No.
There's not a lot of compartmentalization between work and school and
personal life.
And that's been really hard. So when I try to, and Kim knows this, I try to not check my email on the weekend, my work email on the weekends, or really my email too, because if I start reading it, I just like get sucked in. So I try to like leave my phone out of sight, like from like dinner time to bedtime, if I can help it, things like that. So I think a lot of my self-care is boundaries, just to make sure that my life is a little bit compartmentalized, because I need it to be. And then the last thing that I've really been noticing, or at least trying to do, is I want to be mindful as much as I can, but particularly when I'm with my kids. So, if they ask me for help, or if they need something, or if they're telling me some goofy story that I don't even understand, I'm really just focusing on what they're telling me. Because with kiddos, it's like, or at least with mine, they'll run in and out of my life all day long, but it's like 30 seconds here, 2.5 minutes here. It's not like I get, well, tell me, teenager, all about your day. Let's cuddle and let's talk. So I just get little bitty nuggets. So when I get them, I'm focused on, I try to be focused on what they're telling me. And that reminder to be mindful is like, just pay attention to like what they sound like and what they look like and how excited they are about the thing they're telling, or whatever the drama of the minute is, or whatever. And that's been helping me.
So what I think you're each saying is so important, because again, it's not about adding things to our day. It's about how we approach them, whether it's self-care, whether it's more mindfulness, and two things that you said. One thing was, when my kids were in their teens, I thought, oh, they'll need me so much less. I'll have all this time. And instead, what I really learned is exactly what you said, Elizabeth, that making the time to really listen, what a difference that made for me and for them. That, undivided attention. Deepak Chopra says that in this era, attention will be the new aphrodisiac. Because we are so often caught up in our email or our voicemail, or, oh my God, is my phone going to ding and give me another notification? So, and also what you said, Kim, about give yourself reminders to do this stuff. I think the new Apple Watch actually has a timer that tells you to breathe every now and again, but I tell people to set their timers. And, I'm just thinking out loud, but perhaps one of the things we want to do after this Facebook Live is give the providers and moms kind of some ideas or a list that they can choose from, and just get started because
Mhm.
when you start, like you two are describing, you begin to recognize the value. You begin to have a different experience. So, and by the way, when we redid our bathtub, I put in a big soaking tub too,
It's my
because
favorite.
there's nothing better than pouring in some yummy bath salts and just turning off the lights, lighting a candle if it's the evening, you know, just letting the daylight crack in if it's earlier, and letting my mind go.
Yeah. It can be really relaxing for me. It can also be very energizing, depending on like what salts I use and what oils or whatever I use and what time of the day. So it really, something
Absolutely.
about water, right, can be really powerful.
Absolutely. Water and
Mhm.
scent is a
Mhm.
great thing. I mean, I encourage moms to get your favorite lotion, you know. And again, these things don't have to be costly. You can go to the dollar store and see what the scents are like, or get a candle or whatever. There are so many ways, simple ways, not easy, simple ways that we can enrich our lives. And it also delivers the message to our brains that I'm important.
Mhm.
My health and well-being is important. And I often say, you know, if we don't take care of ourselves, then really we are not able to take the best care of our loved ones. And that is so important, I know, to the three of us, to everyone listening. So this is where self-care is self-preserving, not selfish. And we need to practice both self-care and stress reduction for our optimal health and well-being.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now I'm remembering something else. So I'll just jump in. I want to tell the providers out there that, and then you guys can talk about your training, that October 30th through the Brown School, I am going to be giving Stress Less, Live Better for pregnancy, postpartum, and early motherhood. That's my new book, which again, Kim and Elizabeth have been wonderful to include as a resource in their training. It's going to be an audio book in a few months, which
Oh,
I'm
cool.
excited about. Yeah, so we'll be able to listen while other things may be happening or not in our lives. And I will be teaching all 5 skill sets in relation to not just perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, but pregnancy, postpartum, and early motherhood. Because my hope is that we, you know, as advocates for women's health and well-being, will influence more women as they're starting, as they're just beginning to have children, as they're starting their families, to learn and embrace these skills and life approach so that you can use them throughout your life, really, no matter what age and stage, no matter what stressor you're encountering. It's just a great toolkit to have. So I'll be teaching the 5 skill sets specifically. We'll practice, we'll have a self-care experience embedded in learning mindfulness. And it's through the Brown School at WashU. We can probably post that on your Facebook page.
We can.
And
Yeah, and
I
I've put it in the link, or I
think
put it in the comments.
Okay. And I think for anyone who really wants to get an idea of what to do concretely for themselves, for their clients, for any moms whose lives you touch, or families whose lives you touch. A lot of my families now are teaching it to their children.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they have times that they're being mindful together.
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, I just can't say enough about the benefits and how life altering this can be. So, so why don't you two talk about your training and fill everyone in on that?
We will. I have a question about yours though. Is it virtual? So you're October 30th? Okay.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm like, what do they call it? A digital immigrant? So I don't necessarily consider the techie stuff like you do. Yes, it's all virtual. I think the cost is maybe 50 if you're an alum and 75. It's a 3-hour training. It's in the afternoon on the 30th from 1 to 3. And it's going to be great. And we always have a good time too. And I know that you will feel a lot more relaxed and at ease after. So I'm recommending it both as a way to learn these skills and also a way to give yourself a break in your week in life.
Excellent. So October 30th, virtual training through the Brown School, and we'll have that link in our comments. Thanks for sharing that. And then we're so excited because our training is coming up in November, the 13th and 14th, and it's our Heartland perinatal mood and anxiety disorder protocol training. And Dr. Sandford is one of our speakers. And so we're excited to have you. And she'll be talking about mindfulness and what that has to do with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And so, and yeah, our training is specifically for providers who work with moms. And at our at past trainings, we've had nurses, chiropractors, doulas, childbirth educators, doctors. So it is for anyone who works with moms, especially pregnant and postpartum moms, since that is the population that is most likely to experience a mood and anxiety disorder during that pregnancy and postpartum time. And we have a protocol that we go over that highlights empathy and how to, not only do we talk about what are perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, we also talk about how do you help moms who have them. And so how do we listen to them? How do we help them get connected? How do we continue to touch base? And as part of that, we've got speakers like Dr. Sanford, and we'll be highlighting our other speakers at other Facebook Lives this month. And we're really looking forward to, this pandemic has caused an increase in pregnant and postpartum women experiencing higher levels of anxiety and higher levels of depression. And one of the studies came out a few months ago from Canada, and the increase in the percentage of women reporting anxiety and depression, it's just so high. I mean, it's always been an issue. We know 1 in 7 women will experience some form of mood and anxiety disorder. If they have a baby who goes to the NICU, it's 1 in 5. And it's just much higher than that at the moment for so many reasons. And so that means we need even more providers to be ready to support these women and to have this understanding. And so we're grateful to bring the training, and our training will be completely virtual. And so we struggled with that and really wanted to be in person as we have been, but for obvious reasons, the safest way and to keep everyone's stress level down is to have that be virtual at this time. And so yeah, we're looking forward to it. That's November 13th and 14th. We'll put some information in the comments about that as well.
I'm doing that right
and
now.
For our training, as well as Dr. Sandford's, I'm sure there are CEs for your training, Dr. Sandford, and I know there's CEs for ours, and so I think it's 14 for both days. So if you're getting towards the end of the year and you need to get your your educational credits in as a provider, come take our training.
That was a great promo. That was a great promo. So, in closing, I just want to say to everyone out there that, I'm not trying to tell you that mindfulness is the only way to go to reduce stress. There are other options, there are other paths. I just know that it's effective, it works, it's evidence-based. And so, I think it's a really valuable tool in approaching moms with anxiety and depression, and also just busy, active people that have very full lives as moms and others of us do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it
think
feels
that's
good to, oops, sorry, Kim.
No, I think it is. I mean, one of the things is it is a tool. And that means when we say it's a tool, there's so many other tools in the box, in the kit. And so it just happens to be one that it's free and you can do anytime. And so, and
I think it's
we
important
get to have so many choices with it.
I think it's important to get that message out to clinicians though, too, that they can be getting training in this so that they're teaching it properly and that they're utilizing it properly when they're working with moms. So, as a clinician, like having another tool in my toolkit when certain things aren't working, or I think a client would be more amenable to trying these practices, or they already are, and just like diving deeper and like adding levels to their mindfulness and talking about like the neuroscience. I'm a big dork about talking about the neuroscience benefits of mindfulness and how we can really change our neuroplasticity and like it is healing to our brain.
It is healing to our brain.
That's 1 minute of mindfulness is you're giving your amygdala such a break. And so right now, especially during quarantine, like I'm kind of treating it like I don't prescribe medicine. I am not a doctor, but I kind of think of it as like I'm, treating the mindfulness like medicine, like, like, eat your vegetables. Like it's so good for our brains right now to have this mindfulness. So, we're really excited that we get to have you present at the Heartland Protocol training, because there's going to be all different kinds of providers there, that may know a little bit or may know a lot, but can better understand, your pillars of health and the stress less, live better, way of thinking about mindfulness and being able to teach, whether they're like therapists like myself or social workers or OBGYNs or doulas or chiropractors or pediatricians, nurses, whoever is coming across mom at any point, being in contact with mom and her kiddos, to have some expert knowledge on how to talk about mindfulness for clients, I think is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
And they get that chance to apply it in their own lives.
Pardon?
And they get that chance to apply it in their own lives. I mean, I feel like we all, as providers in different ways, we can all use a reminder of these pillars of health and ways to eat and stressing less in life, not only for the folks we work with, but for ourselves. And so it's a win-win, when we get a chance to go through this.
So much love to both of you. Big hugs. I'm going to sign off and thanks
Dr. Sanford,
for having me.
We appreciate having you today. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.